Hey y'all, TRG here, and welcome back to another video. And in this video, I'll be going over Tropical Storm Melissa, as it's expected to become a historic Category 4, or possibly even a Category 5 hurricane and make landfall on Jamaica early next week. And I will also go over the chance for severe weather today and tomorrow. Let's go right on into today's video. So starting out here with the current satellite imagery provided by tropicaltidbits.com, Melissa looks considerably better now than it did last night. You could see a much more organized and concentrated area of hot towers. The center is located probably still a little lopsided, maybe on the southwest side of this large area of convection, maybe even right in the middle of it. So it is generally getting really organized. It is already a high-end tropical storm, and I expect it to be a hurricane probably overnight tonight, if not maybe even as soon as the 11 p.m. Eastern advisory tonight. So getting very well organized here just to the southeast of Jamaica. You could see Haiti up here on the far top side of your screen, right up here. That is Haiti, and you can see southeastern Jamaica right in here. And the system's movement is still generally about north. It's not really moving west just yet, and it probably won't for a couple of more hours, probably till sometime tomorrow afternoon, maybe even tomorrow night before it really starts picking up on that western trajectory. So I expect it to kind of turn generally and very slowly off to the west here over the next 24 hours or so. Taking a look at your visible satellite imagery here, this is a loop over the last about 5 to 6 hours here, and I want to pause it on the very last frame right there, and you could see it is of course still a very healthy system. Looking here on satellite imagery, a much more healthy hot tower blob right there, really located right in the center of this storm, and there's not a whole lot of impacting wind shear on the system anymore. Maybe still some weak westerly wind shear here on the southern end and maybe the northern end, possibly over much of the western side of the system, so that could still be helping to lopside it a bit, which is why I'm not 100% certain if it is completely vertically stacked, but it is definitely considerably more organized than what it was last night. Taking a look here at the official National Hurricane Center outlook using the Radar Omega app, Melissa is currently a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm with a central millibar of 997. Movement is generally off to the east-southeast at 2 miles per hour, although I believe it is considerably closer to a more north-northwest movement at this point. It is expected to become a hurricane probably sometime tomorrow afternoon or evening, but like I mentioned earlier, probably going to be considerably sooner than that, as early as the 11 p.m. advisory tonight, and then rapidly intensify from either a high-end tropical storm or low-end hurricane tomorrow, all the way up to a Category 4 or Category 5 hurricane sometime Monday into Tuesday. Then it will proceed to make landfall most likely somewhere across Jamaica, and the National Hurricane Center is forecasting a peak of 150 miles per hour, which, if this does come to fruition, would actually be the strongest hurricane to ever make landfall in Jamaica. And then it will move off to the northeast and probably become a major hurricane, weakening just a little bit more going into Cuba, and then eventually will move into the Bahamas and probably still be a major hurricane, both landfalling on Cuba and possibly even somewhere in the southeastern Bahamas sometime late next week. Before we continue on with the rest of today's video, I do ask, if you guys haven't already, make sure you hit that like button and share this video with your family, friends, social media, and anybody you know, especially out here in Jamaica, Cuba, or the southeastern Bahamas. And make sure that if you haven't already, you've hit that subscribe button with the notification bell set to all, so you know when I go live or upload another video. Next live stream is planned for tomorrow, which is Saturday, October 25th at about 6 p.m. Eastern time. Let's go right back on into today's video. Now let's dive on into some model data for Melissa. We're going to be beginning with the HAFSA model run, which initiates Melissa as a 987 millibar hurricane, which is stronger than what Melissa actually is right now. So this is kind of the ceiling for our model runs, the worst case scenario, if you will. So pulling this out to tonight, it already has Melissa being a Category 2 hurricane as soon as very early tomorrow morning, strengthens it rapidly into a major hurricane tomorrow afternoon, Category 4 status as soon as very early Sunday morning, Category 5 status probably Sunday morning as well. So it very rapidly intensifies it from a Category 1 about at this time all the way to a Category 5 hurricane in the matter of about, give or take, about 30 36 hours. And then going into Monday, it continues intensifying it. That's a 915 millibar category 5 hurricane right there. So a very aggressive model run here on the HAFSA. Pulling this out even further, it does get it down to as low as 906 millibar. Very, very intense category 5 hurricane right there. Probably upwards of 160, 100 to 75 mile per hour sustained winds at that point. Pushing it a little bit further here into Tuesday morning, it does have a landfall in central Jamaica as a devastating category 5 hurricane very early Tuesday morning, probably about 5 or so a.m. Tuesday morning Eastern time. Continues it off to the northeast, another devastating category 5 hit, this time for eastern Cuba going into Tuesday afternoon, and then a final landfall in the southeastern Bahamas sometime very early Wednesday morning, probably as a category 3 hurricane, I'd say. Probably about a mid to low tier category 3 hurricane at that point, and then that is where our model run ends it. A more realistic scenario here is actually the HAFSB model run. Initiates Melissa as a 993 millibar category, probably tropical storm at this point. I don't think it'd be a hurricane at this point. So definitely a bit more realistic, but still possibly a little bit on the higher side of things, a little bit too strong maybe. And then pushing this on into tomorrow morning, it has a category 1 hurricane forming by about the 8 a.m. advisory, which is very much realistic. That's very, very realistic. Category 2 hurricane probably late tomorrow night towards 11 p.m. advisory. Very realistic in my opinion. And then category 3 sometime maybe Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon. It gets to category 3 status on this model run. And then let's see what it does from here. It indeed does agree with a category 5 being a very real possibility. Strengthens it to category 5 Sunday night into very early Monday morning. And then it does get it down to, I think that was about 914 millibar peak right there. So not as crazy as the HAFSA, but still a very historic hurricane in terms of strength. And man, that would ever be a devastating blow right over Jamaica. Landfall at 916 millibar, probably right around that 160 to 165 mile per hour sustained wind speeds as a category 5 Tuesday morning. A bit earlier than the HAFSA. This is actually probably closer to 3 a.m. And then finally going into Tuesday afternoon, about a 1 p.m. landfall as a Cat 5 in Cuba. And then also going to be landfall in southeastern Bahamas here going into maybe 3 a.m. Wednesday morning. So definitely a bit earlier here in terms of timing on the HAFSB model run compared to the HAFSA model run. Now going into the HWRF model, which should be the least aggressive of our bunch here that we're going to look at. It has Melissa being about a 995 millibar tropical storm tonight. Hurricane sometime early tomorrow morning, maybe even overnight tonight. Doesn't really rapidly intensify immediately. It's a more gradual strength in there, and it really never gets to that category 4 status. I'd say category 3 landfall in southwestern Jamaica here. And get this, Sunday morning here, about 8 a.m. landfall on the HWRF model run. But it does something a bit more unique here. It actually does get it to category 5 strength, but actually for central Cuba being a possible category 5 landfall there, not Jamaica. Jamaica would be probably a low in Cat 4, most likely category 3 landfall Sunday morning, and then it would strengthen into a category 5, impacting Cuba as a category 5 landfall Tuesday morning, close to probably between 3 to 5 a.m. on this model run. So substantially sooner, and it actually would continue to be a category 4 hurricane even over the Bahamas here. This is still a category 4 hurricane, about 135 mile per hour sustained wind speeds on this particular run, impacting the southeastern Bahamas very late Tuesday, actually about 8 p.m. Tuesday. So a lot faster on this model run. Everything is sped up. Landfall in Jamaica Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning. Landfall in Cuba, technically Monday night there, and then going into the Bahamas Tuesday morning, making landfall Tuesday morning or afternoon. And then that is where the model run ends. So now taking a look here at our Google AI ensembles, which have been the most accurate with Melissa and many other tropical storms this season. Let's go ahead and pull this out further here going into Monday morning. You could see pretty good agreement that Melissa will be decently far south of Jamaica there. So decently far enough south to the point where I do think some impacts will be felt if this does come to fruition across southern Jamaica. But really those major hurricane impacts are pretty well to the south of Jamaica here going into Monday morning. Notice how there's only like one or two ensembles that are on that more northern solution. So very, very far south, even further south than most of our hurricane models were showing. Then pulling this out going into Tuesday morning, you can see a very significant northern to northeastern turn here. Monday night into Tuesday morning, a very significant north to northeast turn, really, really rapid. I also want you to note how many of these are high in category 4, if not most, at least peak at some point at category 5 intensity here, going near or north of Jamaica. Most of these ensembles have a landfall being sometime Tuesday morning, maybe a little bit closer to Tuesday afternoon on this particular ensemble run. And then you could see even some of them do have a category 5 landfall on Cuba. Right now, I think the most likely case scenario is we do indeed see a category 5 hurricane. As Melissa starts to take that more western turn, this will likely begin to rapidly intensify up to a category 5 hurricane. And then probably, I think that most likely case scenario is a Cat 5 landfall on Jamaica sometime Tuesday morning. And then going up into Cuba, probably a category, maybe a high in Cat 3, low in Cat 4 landfall for Cuba. And then pushing this out even further, the Bahamas will likely see a major hurricane. Now, there is definitely uncertainty on whether that will be a category 3 or a category 4 hurricane, but I'm quite confident we'll see a major hurricane make landfall in the Bahamas. Probably sometime, we're looking at Wednesday, generally sometime Wednesday. Now we're going to look further on into the future here. We're going to take this all the way out till Thursday. Melissa will be somewhere in this general vicinity on Thursday, probably exiting the Bahamas Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon. And there is definitely a very real possibility that Bermuda ends up seeing hurricane force wind speeds out of what's left of Melissa, whether that be category 2, maybe even a high in category 1 hurricane at this point going into Thursday night. And then there is uncertainty on where it goes after this leaves the Bahamas, again, sometime probably Thursday there. This could either turn off to the northeast, staying a bit further away from Bermuda, maybe still some tropical storm force wind speeds in that case, or possibly going towards Bermuda, or maybe west of Bermuda. There's really three main scenarios. An out to sea version where this very minimally impacts Bermuda, kind of a close call for Bermuda, possibly even a landfall, which would be the more impactful version, or a western shift, which would be a better solution. However, that could end up increasing substantially the risk for rip currents across much of the eastern seaboard there, all the way from Florida, all the way up through Massachusetts there, going from generally probably Tuesday all the way through Friday. And some do indeed, you could see it right here, some do want a curve back, potentially up closer to the northeastern U.S., but the majority of these ensembles are thinking a close call for Bermuda, going right up the middle and then eventually going far out to sea here. So it looks like rip currents will likely be an issue across much of the eastern seaboard going into the middle and especially latter half of next week. Bermuda also wants to keep a close eye on this for the potential of tropical storm to hurricane force impacts. And then again, there is another scenario where this just goes out to sea and it's not too big of an issue for rip currents or for Bermuda. It would still be a rip current risk, but maybe not as bad as if this was closer to Bermuda or west of Bermuda like the other two scenarios. All right, now let's talk about severe weather just briefly here. We do have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect out here across a very small portion of southwest Oklahoma and a large portion of western Texas. The Storm Prediction Center does have a very large 5% tornado risk today, which I completely disagree with, to be frankly honest with you. I do not really see the need for this large of a 5%. I do think we could see a brief tornado or two, and there's a small chance that could be a strong tornado, specifically in south central Texas later this evening into the overnight hours. But the main threat today will be large hail initially with these supercells ongoing right now as of 4 p.m. Eastern, and then also an isolated damaging wind gusts upwards of 80 miles per hour will be possible as these storms congeal up into a line. Tomorrow will likely be a higher end tornado threat, as there is also a 5% chance for tornadoes tomorrow, but it is a smaller 5% chance in terms of size, which honestly I do think tomorrow is that higher end tornado potential. So want to be keeping a close eye on this if you're anywhere from really up towards Shreveport, Monroe, all the way back towards San Antonio, Austin, Texas, all the way east into Gulfport, Mississippi, as anyone from in this green shaded area and especially this brown shaded area could see a tornado. And that 2%, like I said, could be extended back up there towards Shreveport and Monroe. Just depends on how far north our instability gets. Tomorrow we'll also have the risk for some isolated 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts, and we could see some isolated small hail. They do have a big 15% out, but I really don't think we'll see any hailstones over about 1 to 1.5 inch in diameter. So overall, tornadoes will likely be the biggest issue for tomorrow, followed by 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gust and some isolated large hail upwards of about 1.5 inch in diameter. Taking a quick look here at the HRRR, you could see supercells initiating just above my face cam up there across southwestern Texas near Fort Stockton. That's where our main severe threat will be today. Won't rule out a strong tornado with one of those if they can really get ramping up in rotation over the next 2 or 3 hours or so. Also, wouldn't rule out an isolated strong tornado if we can get a good supercell tonight towards 9 o'clock local time in south central Texas. And then, like I said, this congeals up into a big line, widespread 60 to 70 mile an hour winds. Gusts could be as high as 80, especially with that southern portion of the line. Then going on into tomorrow, we could see really, I don't see much of a hail risk, but we will probably see 60 to 70 mile an hour winds here across a good chunk of the southeastern portions of Texas going into tomorrow morning. Isolated small hail again will be possible, and a brief spin up tornado also possible, specifically along the coastline where we could see those supercells and water spouts specifically that move from the Gulf onshore into Texas. Then going into tomorrow afternoon, additional convection is expected. This would be the highest hail threat, but honestly, it looks like an overconvected mess. So just any supercells specifically out here in northeastern and central Louisiana that will be able to take advantage of that environment that is in place going into tomorrow afternoon and evening. We'll have that highest hail threat, highest tornado threat, specifically tornado threat, and damaging wind gusts will also be possible, upwards of 70 miles per hour there. But overall, it is a very messy setup. It's nothing too impressive, but I wouldn't rule out a couple tornadoes tomorrow, maybe even an isolated strong tornado. Like I said, I do think tomorrow is a bit better chance for tornadoes than today. So today, again, looking at a brief spin up tornado or two, one could be strong, most specifically in south central Texas. And then tomorrow, that environment is pretty favorable going into the afternoon and evening hours across Louisiana and southeastern Texas. So I wouldn't rule out a few tornadoes, maybe even a strong one for tomorrow as well. We will be live tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. That will be for talking about Melissa, and if need be, we'll start doing coverage during that live stream as well if it is needed. Alrighty, that is it for this video. Definitely some uncertainty on the future of Melissa, but either way, a destructive and catastrophic hurricane is expected at this point to impact Jamaica going into early next week, and then eventually going into Cuba and the southeastern Bahamas as a major hurricane, possibly even a Category 4 landfall there in Cuba. Just depends on exactly where Melissa goes. If it does go on the west side of Jamaica, that might favor a higher end landfall intensity wise for Cuba, whereas if it goes over dead central Jamaica, the terrain in Jamaica may end up taking some of that intensity away from Melissa. But again, either way, catastrophic hurricane is expected out of Melissa going into early next week. Again, for severe weather, main tornado threat south central Texas for today, southeastern Texas and central Louisiana into southern Louisiana for tomorrow. I will see you guys in tomorrow's live stream on October 25th, somewhere around 6 p.m. Eastern time. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, watch for your weather, and especially the tropics. Goodbye.